Welcome back, fight fans. Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of the most polarizing figures in MMA history, Jon "Bones" Jones. He's a fighter who, for many, epitomized greatness in the octagon, but his story is also a cautionary tale of how the pressures of fame, fortune, and sponsorships can lead even the most talented athletes astray. Today, we're uncovering the darker side of fighter endorsements, the high-stakes deals, the arm-twisting behind the scenes, and how it all came crashing down for Jon Jones. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Jon Jones wasn't just a UFC champion, he was a phenomenon. He burst onto the scene with a unique combination of athleticism, creativity, and a ferocious will to win. But beyond his performances inside the octagon, Jones quickly became a marketable superstar, attracting the attention of some of the biggest brands in the world. But as his career took off, so did the stakes, and the pressures that came with being one of the most endorsed fighters in MMA history. When Jon Jones became the youngest champion in UFC history in 2011, the world took notice. Here was a fighter who seemed to have it all: skill, charisma, and an aura of invincibility. It wasn't long before the endorsements came rolling in. Jones signed lucrative deals with Nike, Gatorade, Reebok, and other top-tier brands. For a time, it seemed like he was on top of the world, both inside and outside the cage. But what fans didn't see was the immense pressure that came with these deals. The endorsements weren't just about wearing a brand's logo or appearing in commercials. They came with expectations, and those expectations could be as punishing as any opponent in the octagon. Here's the thing about high-profile endorsements: they often come with strings attached. In the case of Jon Jones, these deals were about more than just money. They were about image, behavior, and the brand's reputation. The companies that backed Jones wanted to be associated with a winner, yes, but they also wanted to be associated with someone who exemplified the values of their brand. This meant that Jones was under constant scrutiny, not just from the media and fans, but from the brands themselves. Behind the scenes, Jones was reportedly under immense pressure to maintain a squeaky clean image. Every move he made, every word he said, was being watched. The stakes were incredibly high. A single misstep could mean losing millions of dollars in sponsorships. But this pressure to maintain a perfect image was at odds with the reality of being a fighter, a profession that is inherently violent, aggressive, and often chaotic. For a while, it seemed like Jones was handling it all with ease. He continued to dominate in the UFC, his star power growing with each victory. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. The pressure to be perfect was taking its toll, and it wasn't long before Jones' carefully crafted image began to unravel. In May 2012, Jon Jones was arrested for DUI after crashing his Bentley into a pole. This incident was the first major scandal of his career and a stark reminder of the realities behind the glitz and glamour of his endorsements. The brands that had once clamored to be associated with him were suddenly faced with a dilemma. How do you market a fighter who's now making headlines for all the wrong reasons? For Jones, the DUI was just the beginning of a series of incidents that would lead to the loss of his once lucrative endorsement deals. Despite the DUI, Nike decided to stick with him, believing that he could bounce back. But behind the scenes, tensions were mounting. The brands were nervous, and their faith in Jones was beginning to waver. They were willing to give him another chance, but the message was clear. There would be no more room for mistakes. Jones' troubles didn't end there. In 2014, just as his career was reaching new heights, he found himself embroiled in another controversy. During the lead-up to his highly anticipated fight with Daniel Cormier, Jones tested positive for cocaine. The test result shocked the MMA world and put Jones's reputation and his endorsements in jeopardy. Nike, which had stood by him after the DUI, finally decided to cut ties. The brand that had once seen Jones as a perfect ambassador now viewed him as a liability. So what happened? How did a fighter who seemed to have it all, talent, endorsements, fame, end up losing everything? The answer lies in the intricate and often unspoken world of fighter endorsements. When brands invest in athletes, they're not just buying their talent, they're buying their image. And that image is supposed to reflect the values of the brand. For a company like Nike, which prides itself on its "Just Do It" slogan and its association with athletic excellence, having an athlete who was making headlines for drug use and legal troubles was a disaster. But it wasn't just about the public perception, there were also significant financial stakes involved. The loss of his Nike deal was a major blow for Jones, but it was far from the end of his troubles. In April 2015, Jones was involved in a hit-and-run incident in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The incident, which involved a pregnant woman being injured, was another scandal that Jones couldn't escape. This time, the fallout was even more severe. The UFC stripped him of his title, suspended him indefinitely, and almost all of his remaining sponsors severed ties with him. For the brands that had once been eager to associate with Jones, the decision to drop him wasn't just about protecting their image, it was about protecting their bottom line. Sponsors invest millions in their athletes, and when those athletes start to generate negative publicity, it can have a direct impact on the brand's sales and reputation. In the cutthroat world of sports endorsements, loyalty often takes a back seat to the bottom line. The story of Jon Jones is a stark reminder of the delicate balance that athletes must maintain between their public and private lives. For Jones, the pressure to live up to the expectations of his sponsors, while also dealing with the intense scrutiny that came with being a high-profile athlete, proved to be too much. The result was a series of decisions that not only cost him millions in lost endorsements, but also damaged his legacy as one of the greatest fighters in MMA history. But there's another layer to this story, one that's often overlooked: the role that these endorsements and the pressure they bring play in pushing athletes towards these breaking points. For Jon Jones, the pressure to be perfect wasn't just coming from the media or the fans, it was also coming from the brands that had invested in him. And when those pressures collided with the realities of his personal struggles, the results were disastrous. The story of Jon Jones raises important questions about the nature of athlete endorsements and the impact they can have on an athlete's life. When brands invest in a fighter, they're not just investing in their skills, they're investing in their image, their persona, and their ability to sell a product. But what happens when that image starts to crack? What happens when the pressure to maintain a perfect persona becomes too much to bear? For Jones, the pressure was overwhelming. He was expected to be a role model, a champion, and a marketable figure all at once. But at the end of the day, he was also a human being, one who was dealing with personal demons and struggles that the public could only begin to understand. The result was a series of decisions that ultimately led to his downfall. As fans, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a fighter's career, the wins, the losses, the championships. But it's important to remember that behind every great athlete is a complex web of pressures, expectations, and obligations. For Jon Jones, the weight of those expectations proved to be too much. His story is a powerful reminder of the dark side of fighter endorsements and the impact they can have on an athlete's life. But it's also a story of redemption. Despite everything, Jon Jones has managed to make a comeback in the sport he loves. He's fought his way back to the top, and while his legacy may be tarnished, his talent and determination are undeniable. The question now is whether he can maintain that balance between his public and private life, and whether the brands that once turned their backs on him will ever be willing to take another chance. Fighter endorsements are a double-edged sword. On one hand, they provide athletes with the financial support they need to train and compete at the highest level. But on the other hand, they can create a web of expectations that can be difficult, if not impossible, to navigate. For Jon Jones, the cost of these endorsements was steep, but it's a cost that many fighters are willing to pay in exchange for the chance to achieve greatness. As we watch Jones continue his journey, it's worth asking, is the pressure of these endorsements worth the risk? And how can we, as fans, support our favorite fighters without contributing to the pressures that can ultimately lead to their downfall? So what do you think? Does knowing about the behind-the-scenes pressures of endorsements change the way you view Jon Jones' career? Do you think these sponsorship deals are good for the sport, or do they create more problems than they solve? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more content like this, where we dive deep into the untold stories of the fight world, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep questioning, stay informed, and remember, in the world of combat sports, things aren't always what they seem.